with a disability, you have to be able to problem solve every day. Whether it's getting into a building or it's, figuring out how you get from point A to point B. It definitely makes you think outside the square of, okay, so this is where I've got to go today. How am I going to get there? Or how am I going to get in? Or
So welcome to Access All Areas, Candid Conversations. This is where we have a chat about disability, medical conditions, or chronic illness that affect people and their lives, and to build a little bit more awareness and, I guess, advocacy around this topic in this space. So my guest today is Skye, and I'm going to throw over to her to do an introduction.
So I was born with spina bifida 40 odd years ago. I then lost my leg about 7 years ago, back in 2017, I think it was, due to failed surgeries. We tried to, I found a surgeon who was willing to try and fix things, and, we unfortunately didn't work. But yeah, I live in the country, got a couple of great brothers and mum and dad and nieces and nephews who I love and they love me. It's pretty much me. Worked in government all my life, pretty much. So, yeah.
Excellent. And so I guess, there's a lot of stuff that's come out of even just that little introduction. So I love the fact that you live in the country, but having said that, having grown up in the country myself, I do realise that there's an added layer of, I guess, complexity that comes with having a disability and living in a country area.
Yeah, there is. Whether it's access, it's probably jumping ahead. One of the things I hate, and I really do, is that 40 years later, I'm still having the same conversations with government departments, employers, people in general about access, about giving people a go, and all those sorts of things. It just it doesn't. And I know, and it always comes back to money, and I get that, but it is how can we still be having these same conversations?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And I suppose it's also access to services out here, because there's not you need to go to city, to Sydney, or go to the big cities for access to services.
Yeah.
And yes, things have changed over the years. I look at, when I was growing up, there was no access to sports, to accessible sports, and those sort of things. Whereas now, there's more access to that for kids out here, which I love. I love seeing that. That there's more camps, and there's more. They're now introducing wheelchair basketball out here, and it's I live in Orange, just west of Sydney, and seeing that sort of stuff is really great. It's a pity it wasn't around when I was a kid, but still to see it coming out is really, really nice.
Yeah, it is really exciting to see that, I guess, advancement in the fact that, we do need to make services and resources and just have an inclusive community, because everybody has, something different that they have to contribute, and to enable them to contribute is really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So my next question, or my first question really, is based around, what do you think the best thing is about having a disability?
Best thing for me is I like being able to influence people. I love the fact that with my nieces and nephews, they're growing up with me, so they don't see anything different. And just being able to show young kids that it is possible to get out there and do stuff. And I suppose it's also given me a sense of, problem solving, and, being able to think on my feet and that sort of stuff, which, I probably, if I hate the word normal, but I probably wouldn't be using my problem. I probably wouldn't be problem solving every day. Whereas, with a disability, you have to be able to problem solve every day, whether it's getting into a building or it's, figuring out how you get from point A to point B, and that sort of stuff. So that's probably the main thing for me is I love the fact that, as I said, my nieces and nephews and all of the young kids that are growing up around me can see me and they don't see it as any different. So they're going to treat people better than what I probably had as a kid.
Yeah, so that next generation just handing the baton on to them and saying, hey, look, this is just part of what life can bring, and it's not exceptional. It just is. It just is. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. And that problem solving thing. Yeah. I think anybody that experiences disability has definitely got a specialized set of problem solving skills that
it definitely makes you think outside the square of, okay, so this is where I've got to go today. How am I going to get there? Or how am I going to get in? Or, that sort of stuff. And it does make you think about, it does make you think outside the square, which, it probably helps you in the rest of your life because you are actually thinking outside, like, because you know how to problem solve. So you're thinking about other stuff that, so yeah.
Yep. Not just about going outside, jumping in the car and going to the supermarket to buy your bottle of milk. It's much more complex than that.
It's like, okay, so how do I get there? Do I have, can I get into the building? Is it, like, how long is it going to take? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side of that question, what do you think is the worst thing about having a disability?
For me, I suppose it's pain levels. It's not knowing what I'm going to wake up to in the next morning. Just in terms of how much pain I'm going to be in. As I said before, it's, as much as people say that, as much as the word inclusiveness is thrown around and all that sort of stuff, it's an overused word. And I think that's really sad because it, I think that people, say that they're inclusive, say that they'll give jobs to people, say that they'll do that. Words don't mean much when there's no action behind it for me. And I find, as I said, I'm still having the same conversations about, access to buildings, getting people jobs and all that sort of stuff that I was having 20 odd years ago. Like, I went to a thing about the disability strategy the other day, and I sat with a council member and we were talking, and I said to him, I remember having this exact same conversation with you 3 years ago about these exact same issues. And he looked at me and he said, no, we didn't. I said, yeah, we did. I said, it was with you. We were sitting in this room having the exact same conversation. And how can we be doing that 3 years later? So I just, this unfortunately seems to be a lot of lip service around, and I don't know how you change that. Because they came, with this disability strategy that they've come out with, they go, well, yeah, it'll change. And I'm like, yeah, but you actually need to prove to those people that, like me, that it's actually going to change, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to need to use it. So I don't know. But that's
changing that process into something that then becomes very practical rather than.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing for me, is that just the words into actions thing doesn't seem to happen. And I don't know whether it happens in city areas more than it happens in regional areas, and maybe it's because of money and because of the fact that we don't have services out here that can do these things. But I also don't see that I don't see why that can be the biggest barrier.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And understandably frustrating in the sense that you can be having that exact same conversation 3 years later, and it seems like, oh no, we're just starting off, isn't this wonderful, we're doing a great job, and it's kind of like, well, no, we've already been here and
we've been here, had this conversation. And I remember, because I used to be on the access committee here for our local council, and I got off because I was over it because they just weren't doing anything. And I remember talking to the chairperson, like the chair brought up the fact that they built a ramp into the pool. And he was going on about how awesome it was. And I'm like thinking, we're in 2021 and you're thinking this is awesome. People like me who can't get down a ladder into a pool, we're not new. I've been around for hundreds. Well, people like me have been around for hundreds of years. Like, this is not some awesome thing that, is all of a sudden just come out. Like, to crow about it now, like, yeah, it's awesome. You've done it. But we were having this conversation 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But, how do you change it?
Little bit by little bit. And I think that's the exhausting thing is.
That's the tiring bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the reflection is that, you end up not only managing your own disability and your own conditions and what all those things that come along hand in hand with that, but then end up being an educator and an advocate and building awareness. And, that becomes an extra job on top of everything else that you do.
And it kind of gets tiring and you're just like, why am I doing this? Because you feel like you're beating your head up against a brick wall, or at least I do sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah, exhausting. So having said that, to my last question is, what do you wish that people knew or understood about what living with a disability is like, or things that we could change or be different?
I suppose the one thing for me, and I said this to someone, to a job coach wanted to interview me for something once, and it's, if you give someone a go, like you look at disability, like you look at someone who's got a disability, if you look at the employment, you look in the employment industry, you give a disabled person a job, within 12 months, they're probably going to take less sick days than your average, I hate the word normal, but your average person will take in that time frame, and they'll probably throw more at you in terms of helping you than your average employee. So my thought is that everyone's got their own issues. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And just because someone walks in on crutches, or they go in a wheelchair, or they've gone in with a cane because they're blind or whatever, give them a shot, see how they go. Like, it's not going to hurt you to give someone a shot and just go, okay, let's give this a shot for 2 weeks and go from there. And if it works out, works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
100%.
But the amount of confidence you probably give that person, because they've probably been knocked back 15 times before you've given them that shot, is going to be more than the 2 weeks that you've given them. If you tell them in 2 weeks' time they don't have a job, that's probably going to be that 2 weeks, and the confidence you gave them in that 2 weeks is probably going to get them further than if you had said no to them in the first place.
Yeah, so true.
I just figured give everyone a shot, and you can, it can only backfire on you if it does. Even if it does, you just walk away from it.
Yeah. And who knows, you might have found your next, star employee. That's
exactly right. But you may have let them go out the door because they walked in with a set of crutches.
Yeah.
So,
employment is definitely a whole nother section. And we speak about, it's people with disabilities are generally, they're people that you will retain for a long time. They're very, dedicated people as a general rule, and they will give you that extra level of something that sort of many staff take for granted.
And I think it's sad because a lot of businesses, and I know a lot of businesses in regional areas do it, and it's because of cost. A lot of businesses look at disabled people as a work health and safety issue.
Yeah,
and that's really, really sad, because 9 times out of 10 they're the ones that are fixing your work health and safety issues.
Yeah, and have a more, I think, awareness around, what their spatial capacity is, and they're aware of the things that they need to do to look after themselves.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'll stay away from something that I'm like, I because I don't drive, I'm getting knocked back on jobs, and I'm like going, I'm not applying for a job that needs a driver's license, or needs me to walk 3Ks, or needs me to run a marathon. I'm only applying for something that actually know I can do, guys. This is not like, I'm not, and I actually said that to an employer once. I'm like, because he was going on about safety and stuff. And I said, mate, I'm only applying for positions and workplaces where I know I'm safe. I'm not going to walk into somewhere where I'm going to put myself in danger.
Absolutely.
I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go for a job that is going to put me in danger and is going to put you in danger, because I know it's going to cost you money if I end up hurting myself. But on the flip side, you look at businesses and you go, like I used to work, as I said, for a government department. I used to work for New South Wales Health. And I got, things that happen, and they'd turn around to me and say something to me. And I'm like, yeah, but if you fixed it, I'm like, if I end up hurting myself, falling over, and I've made you aware of it, and I end up hurting myself, it's going to cost you a damn sight more than it's going to cost you to actually fix the problem. And they don't look at it from that point of view. They just look at it from the cost of making a building inclusive or making a workplace inclusive. They just, and that is so, it's really, frustrating. For one of a better phrase.
The conversation is around, you're the best person to know what is right and what your capacity and capabilities are. And, we aren't going to go and try and set the bar above what we're capable of, because,
because you put yourself in danger then. And that's just correct. That's just stupid. And I said that to someone today. He said, are you sure you're going to be safe in this workplace? And I don't think it's the right thing for you. And I'm like, how about you give me a shot, because I've turned up and I've proved to you in the last, 15 minutes that I'm safe. And I, in all honesty, would not be here if I did not think, if I'd seen the job and gone, that's not a safe job for me, I wouldn't have applied for it. I'm not into wasting my time or wasting your time, for want of a better phrase. But I don't know.
Yes, it's a very tricky and difficult road to navigate. I think this whole employment thing, we could literally speak for hours.
I think we could.
And I think the thing to wrap that up on is the fact that you do have the ability, by offering someone a position and giving them a go, like you said, it builds their confidence, and literally it can change their life. It can mean that person may not need to rely on a Centrelink benefit anymore. It means that they've got a better capacity to support other people. They might be able to then support their family better. If they've got children to teach their children a better way of growing up and there's so much that comes hand in hand. It's not just
exactly right. It's not just for the one person. It's showing a lot of people that things can be better, and I don't know, my hope is that hopefully it changes, not maybe in my lifetime, but for the next generation coming through, that it's easier for the next generation coming through.
And it goes back to, you mentioned before, like nephews and nieces. They're the ones that they're the torchbearers for the future, I guess. And
they're the next employers of the world. So
that's exactly right. And if they don't have those preconceived notions, then, hopefully things will look differently in the future.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me and having this conversation. And,
awesome.
Hopefully shedding a little bit of a different lens on what it's like to have a disability, and, what the good things, the bad things, the journey
all the in-betweens.
Yeah, exactly. And, thank you so much. And we will collect the sort of information and put it out there for next time.
Awesome. Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.